Hey, Warren Eckstein here. I put together a list of the most important rules for training your dog, and I want to share them with you. I wrote them all down, and I'm going to go over them step by step with you, but it's really important stuff for you to understand because everyone wants a well-educated dog, and a well-educated dog comes with a well-educated guardian. Number one, regardless of whether you're in formal obedience training or doing it yourself, these do apply. Number one, training should be a positive experience for you and your dog. A lot of people assume that when you're training your dog, you have to be dominant, you have to be alpha, all that nonsense you'll hear. The bottom line is, just like with a child, if their education is fun, they're going to learn a lot more and retain a lot more. So make sure when you're training your dog that you train the dog in a positive way for both of you. Number two, every dog needs to be familiar with basic obedience training. You hear me say this all the time. I don't care whether your dog sits the first time or stays, but the important thing with basic obedience training is it gives you a positive way to communicate with your dog, and that is so critical. So instead of saying no, no, no all the time, you have a positive way of telling your dog, and your dog knows what's expected. So training, real important for every dog. It's a safety factor as well. Number three, training should involve no negative or punishment. That is so important. So many people still use that old approach, rolling the dog on the back or being dominant. And training should never involve anything negative whatsoever, because if you're negative, you're going to get a negative response from your dog. So no punishment, all those components out the window. Also, ensure that your dog's motivation for reward is highest during a training session. Find something that your dog absolutely adores. In some cases, it may be food. In other cases, if you're doing like police dog work, it could be a ragger, it could be a frisbee, it could be any number of things. It could be a pat on the head, or how about a hug and a kiss? Well, the bottom line is make sure, it's really important to make sure that when you're working with your dog, the motivation to learn is at their highest level. Just like kids going to school, if they get a good night's sleep, they're going to learn better. And also, if it's interesting, and learn it. So make it interesting, but more importantly, make sure that motivation is there every time you work with your dog. Also, make sure the reward that you're offering your dog, and this is important, you've heard me say lots of times, I'm not a treat trainer. I use a lot of treats. I don't use clicker training. I'm kind of basic the old way, but there's nothing wrong with using treats. There's nothing wrong with clicker training. They're all positive as long as you're consistent and make it a positive experience for both you and your dog. Also, once training has been accomplished, and this is so important, Warren, my dog is perfect at home. Well, sure, they're perfect at home. There's very little distractions at home. So it's critical when you start working with your dog to train them in a situation where it's nice and quiet and peaceful. Then once the dog understands the basics, you can start introducing a lot of distractions, but a little at a time. So for example, let's say your dog is not great around other dogs. Once you've accomplished the basics, take them to a dog park, but stay away maybe 100 yards or 50 yards and practice there, and over a period of time, get a little bit closer. That's really critical. You want to practice with more distractions. Dog obedience training takes time, and things might not always go the way you want them to go, but if you're consistent, I promise you, they will. People often say to me, what's the point? Why does my dog need to be trained? Well, the dog needs to be trained, as I said earlier, for safety reasons. You want to be able to call your dog back. You want to be able to take a nice leisurely walk. I'll give you a prime example. Over the years, I've gone to clients and say, well, I like to walk my dog, but it's so stressful when I walk my dog for me and the dog that no one's enjoying it, so the walks are much shorter. So think about this. If you have a well-trained, well-behaved, well-socialized dog following the approach I just gave you, the walks will be longer, the outings will be longer, maybe you'll vacation together, maybe you'll take your dog on a ride somewhere. So just make sure that everything you do is positive. Negativity never works when you're trying to work with animals. Doesn't work with people, doesn't work with our dogs either. I'm Warren Eckstein. Remember to tune into the Pet Show every week for more information and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll be sharing lots of stuff here every single week.